Flip to Freedom, episode number 60. Hello again, this is Sean Terry from the Flip to Freedom podcast, and we are on episode number 60. And if you're listening for the very first time, I'd like to let you know that I have put this podcast together for you to help you quit your job, get out of the rat race, be done with corporate America, stop commuting, and live the life of freedom. And you're going to learn how to do this by flipping properties in your spare time, even if you have no cash and no credit. Now, you're probably wondering, how the heck does that work? Well, you know, just a handful of years ago, I had a complete dead-end job I didn't like. I was living month to month. And on a Saturday afternoon, I was driving down the street. I was listening to the radio, and I was going to an appointment that I didn't want to go to. And I heard this guy talk about how you could flip properties and make money even if you have no cash and no credit. Now, skeptical me, I was like, this guy's nuts. I turned the radio station, and I just continued on down the road. But something in my gut, thank God, had me turn the radio back, and I listened to what he said. I actually bought his course and bought his program. And from that point forward, I went out, and in 3 weeks, I got my first deal using no cash and no credit. I just signed a contract with a seller for a price, and I turned around and sold it to a buyer for a higher price, actually $11,008 higher, and I got a check for $11,008, and that literally changed my life. Before that point, I actually bought one house, and I bought an apartment complex earlier than that, but that was really my experience in real estate. It really wasn't that much. It wasn't like a full-time endeavor. But I took the information, and from that point forward, I went out and bought and sold over $120 million worth of property, well over 500 transactions in real estate, ranging from single-family houses all the way up to, multi-million-dollar land transactions and commercial properties from that aspect. So what's great about real estate is you can take it to any level that you want, and that's what I love about it. So this podcast is a way for me to kind of show people exactly how to go out and go from where they are and have excellent information that they can use, high quality information that they can use in their process. Now, why flipping properties? Because that is the least barrier of entry. Meaning that, guess what? You can sign a contract with a seller, you can sign a contract with a buyer, and you can make the difference in between. No one's going to run your credit. No one's going to ask you for a proof of funds or cash or anything like that. You literally sign a contract, and then you sign a contract with a higher price with a buyer. You bring it to a title company and instruct them to do an assignment or a double escrow. And that's what all these episodes are about, is that process. How to find a title company, how to find the buyers, how to find the sellers, how to negotiate, what to write the contracts, the whole gamut. There's 59 different episodes in that. And also, too, I wrote a book, a 129-page book that people are just absolutely raving about. I've heard people say they spent well over $1,000 for the same information I give away for free. But you can get that book. It's a 129-page book at flip2freedom.com, flip2freedom.com, and it goes in detail, step by step, exactly how to start from where you are to go out and get your first deal and beyond. And that's what that book is all about. So you can get that at flip2freedom.com. Now, in this particular episode, I am going to address a review that came in on iTunes that is very interesting, and it talks about ethics. And I think it's really important. I'm glad that this gentleman actually posted this review. I wish he would have shot me an email or left the message on my voicemail line, but is what it is. And I want to address it because I think it's very important, and I want to clarify a couple things if I could. But before this review, there was one that came in on July 22nd, and it's a 5-star review from B. Peterson 0290, and his 5-star review says, "Best of the best. Thank you, Sean, for putting this amazing podcast together. I have been addicted to it and can't wait to get out there." Okay, now this one is a review that came in on August 2nd, and this is by Gilbert Tribe, I believe it is, on August 2nd. And I'm going to read his review, and then I'm going to address it and let you know my thoughts on what this review is about. Okay, it says a 3-star review. It says extremely practical, but not extremely ethical. Okay, it says Sean Terry is extremely knowledgeable and practical in his area of expertise. He provides a step-by-step process in detail where he explains exactly how to wholesale houses. Even if you are not inclined to wholesaling houses, he provides great information concerning real estate. Okay, my only criticism is that Sean is not entirely ethical in all his transactions according to his statements. He includes many means of backing out of a contract at any time and holds the buyer or seller's feet to the fire. He stated that he sometimes goes back and negotiates under false pretenses a lower price with the seller after signing a contract for no other reason than to increase profit. In my mind, this is certainly legal because of the many out clauses in his contract, but is not ethical. I get great impression that Sean would have no problem taking advantage of someone's ignorance to maximize his profit. There is a gray area between bargaining for a good deal and taking advantage of someone. And Sean gives me the impression that he pays no consideration to the side of the gray area his deal lies. Again, this is certainly legal but not ethical. Sean covers many aspects of his process, so it would be great if he would cover the ethics of the business. Now, first off, I want to say thank you for the review. Like I said, I wish you would have emailed it to me or left it on a voicemail so I could address it, because I don't want to give I don't want to give people the impression that I'm teaching unethical things. Number one, because that is not my intention. Now, first off, I want to say is that if I, through my recordings, have actually gave him the impression, and that's why I want to thank him for bringing this to my attention, that if he got the impression that I was doing something unethical when it comes to backing out of a contract or renegotiating prices, that means there's other people that have thought maybe the same thing. And for that, I want to apologize, because I don't want to portray of doing anything unethical. I try to be the most ethical person I can possibly be when it comes to dealing with sellers and dealing with buyers and even dealing with people that are part of the Flip to Freedom Academy and whatever. I do what I believe the best I can do. Now, from this standpoint, I did not do the best I could do when it comes portraying potentially, negotiating with sellers and renegotiating prices. So I guess I can say that for me, I am obviously human, and I am growing, and I am learning, and I will be very careful on what I say when it comes to negotiating with sellers or whatever I say, because I sometimes kind of forget. I feel like I'm talking to one person, but I forget that thousands and thousands and thousands of people listen to this particular this podcast here. So I have to be careful in what I say when it comes to negotiation, and I don't want to come across as doing anything unethical at all when it comes into dealing with buyers and sellers. Now, let's address exactly what he's talking about when it comes to dealing with sellers. Now, there is a gray area, a very gray area. And the gray area is that you are wholesaling houses, and literally you're signing a contract and negotiating with a seller at one price, and then you're turning around and selling the property for a higher price. Now, it all becomes in how you are talking and working and presenting yourself to the seller. Okay? And when I can tell you this, is that my true intention is to turn around and help the seller and make it a win-win solution as best as possible. Now, let me tell you first off about what service we are providing for the seller, and also what service you're providing for the buyer. Now, majority of the houses, now we're talking about looking and finding motivated sellers. You're looking and finding motivated sellers from either a probate property or inheritance unemployed or absentee investors that live out of state that have a property in the state you're in, or whatever, pre-foreclosures maybe, whatever the case may be, you're looking for motivated sellers. Now, why, if a person has a property, why would they want to go through an investor? That's a good question. And what type of service can you provide? Well, the seller has a couple different options. The first option is they could list the property with a real estate agent, stick it on the market. Now, there are some pros and cons about listing with an agent. First off, most real estate agents don't want to list properties that are in shambles. A lot of the properties I have flipped and negotiated and worked with sellers and made profit on are properties that are distressed, seriously physically distressed, meaning there's holes in the roof, meaning there is junk all over the place, meaning that the AC doesn't work, or the plumbing or electric doesn't work, or there's major issues in the property that doesn't make it sellable to the open retail market, where an investor would come in and buy it. So now when that seller wants to turn around and list the property, agents will tell them that, listen, you got to clean up the property before I can stick it in the market, because I'm going to be showing it to potential retail buyers, and they're going to be scared away of the condition of the property. So that means the seller now is going to have to go out, and they're going to have to obtain or find money to clean up the property and get it to a sellable state to sell it to the retail market. Now let's say they get it to that point and they're going to turn around, and now they're going to have to wait on the market for someone to buy it. That wait, in this current market condition, could be anywhere from 30 days up to a year that they're going to have to wait to sell the property. There is no quick, closing, for a property like that. And that's number one. Number two is that, they potentially would have to sell to someone who's going to get conventional financing. That means they're going to have to go through an appraisal process. The buyer's going to come in and give them an inspection report, and they're going to ask them to fix different things on the property. And then they're also going to have to pay any part of the closing cost and commissions and stuff like that to the seller. That's a lot of stuff that has to be done, and a lot of realtors won't list properties that are in certain conditions or even in certain areas. So now, what does the seller do if they have a property that's distressed like that, or they have to close quickly because they need cash for something, or they inherited a property and guess what? They don't have the money to go fix it up or do anything. They just want to be done with it and close the estate. So what does that seller do? Well, that seller can go to a realtor and try to list the property, or they can try to sell it. The next one would be for sale by owner, right? So now they stick a sign in the front yard, and they get all these people calling, trying to negotiate, and now they're going to have to do the paperwork. They're going to have to open escrow. They're going to have to go through the whole process of negotiating with the buyer. And a lot of sellers don't have the wherewithal or the education, or maybe not the education, maybe the understanding on how to go out and sell the property themselves. They don't want to deal with the phone calls. They don't want to deal with finding the contract and negotiating and doing all that stuff. They don't want to have to find a title company that will do all that stuff and then go through the closing process, whichever that may be. So when you have that, that's the option. They can either go to a realtor, or they can sell the thing for sale by owner. They can post it on Craigslist and sell it for sale by owner if they'd like. But a lot of people are uncomfortable with doing that. So then what do? Now, most of these properties are the worst house in the neighborhood. It's funny because, I go drive a neighborhood and I go, yeah, there's my house that I'm going to, because it's always the worst house in the neighborhood. It's just nasty. And that is, not only is it bringing down the neighborhood, it's bringing down the values. And when we turn around and either buy a house ourselves and fix it up and renovate it, or buy it and rent it, or we buy it and then flip it to another buyer that comes in and cleans it up, then neighbors come out and they're saying, hey, thank you so much for cleaning up the neighborhood. We really appreciate it. So the service you're doing for the seller is you're putting yourself to where you can come in and you can handle distressed properties, and you can turn around and you can do the marketing, you can get the contract signed, you can open up the escrow and literally take the weight off their shoulders about the whole process. I've got videos of sellers hugging me going, oh my gosh, thank you so much for helping me out. Thank you so much for helping me with this property. We didn't know what we were going to do. And I think the bottom line is this, is that it's your intention. Okay, it's your intention, your sincere intention on wanting to help this person out the best you possibly can to relieve them of the situation they're in. It could be a divorce situation, it could be whatever situation it might be, but if you are sincerely interested in helping them out, and it's funny, we did a mastermind call last night, and someone said, okay, there's a bunch of other wholesalers in my market, what's going to separate me and make me different from everybody else? And I can tell you this, is that, if you are sincerely interested in helping them out, I've sat down with sellers and I've listened to sellers for 2 hours go on about their life and their situation and what they want to accomplish and what the problems that they have and all these different things. And if you take the time to listen to what these sellers want and what they want to accomplish and what they want to do, then you'll be amazed that if you can. I've helped sellers out in ways, maybe not possibly buying the house, but then helping them get their moving stuff together, helping get a moving team together, helping them get their stuff packed up and helping them move. So if you really can sincerely help someone out the best way you possibly can, but understanding that you're in the business of making a profit, okay? And also too, that how you represent yourself to the seller is very important as well. And what you say. Now, let's talk about the out clauses, okay, and in the contract. Now, first off is that if I am not 100% confident that I can sell the property at the price negotiated, then I will tell the seller. I will tell the seller, I say, listen, you know what? I know you want a higher price, for that. Those numbers don't work for me, but guess what? I have some other friends that are looking for properties that I could, talk to them about the property. I could market the property for you and see if they would buy it. Now, obviously, it's not, there's no guarantee. It could, someone might buy it and someone might not. But the bottom line is this, is that, if I have someone that is interested, I could see if I could get your price. So, like for an example, I got this property under contract. The guy wanted 15,000, or no, I needed to be at 15,000 on it. He wanted 20. I said, listen, at 15,000 I can get the deal done. At 20,000 I can't get the deal done because I'm not confident in that number. But I do know some other people that might be interested in the property that, if you sign a contract, with me, it gives me the right to market the property because I have equitable interest in it. And then I can market the property and see if I can sell it for 20,000 or higher and get the property sold. And he's like, okay, I even put that in the contract. Contract subject to buyer finding a buyer. So he signed off on it, no problem. He understood that exactly. Now, when it comes to out clauses are a way to protect you, so you essentially don't have to buy the property if you can't sell the property. But remember, it's how you present yourself to the seller. Now, in my contract clauses, obviously I say I'm, purchasing the property in as-is condition, contract subject to, it could be subject to a partner's approval. It could be subject to finding an end buyer. It could be subject to the valuation of the property to make sure the property value is corrected by an appraiser or by a BPO or whatever. But also, too, in all my contracts, I have in there where it says that it says Sean Terry is agreeing to purchase the property to rent, lease, assign, or sell for profit. It says it right there. And I tell them that. I read them that. I say, here's a contract clause. Here's a contract clause. Guess what? If the value doesn't come in correctly, guess what? This deal might not close. If I don't find a buyer and then use a buyer, it might not close. And it says, here it says, it's agreeing to purchase a property to rent, lease, assign, or sell for profit. See, my goal is I'm not going to live here. Right? And this is the other thing. It says, further understood that the buyer is not intending to occupy the property as its residence. Seller fully understands that the buyer and or its representatives are not earning any fee or commission from the seller. That means we're not having the seller pay us for a fee or a commission or anything like that. And it says also, sellers should not expect any representation from the buyer or its representatives, and any legal or financial questions should be answered by seller's broker or legal advisor. So you're saying, hey, listen, if you have any questions, you can talk to an attorney. Take your contract to an attorney if you want. But the bottom line is, number one, I'm not representing them. And number two, I'm solely contracting the property to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Now, in my case, some of them I might keep for a rental. I might lease them. I could assign the property, or I could sell it, and it's for a profit. I'm an investor. That's why I'm coming in, for a profit. And and a contract is subject to some things happening. Number one, it might be finding a buyer, it might be figuring out the valuation. And if you're representing yourself like that to the seller, then there's an understanding. So then when it comes, out and you potentially have to back out of the property because you can't find a buyer, you got a couple different options. You could either A, renegotiate the price to a number that will work, right? Or you can back out of the contract at that point in time. Now, if you have to back out of the contract, that's part of this business. Not every contract closes. In a regular real estate purchase, if they were going to list the property and sell it through a realtor, in contracts there are out clauses. There's financing clauses. I've had properties where I've bought, renovated, put on the market through a realtor, sold, and the last day of closing, they go, hey, sorry, we're gonna do our financing clause, and we're gonna back out of the contract, and they have the right to do that per that. And now, is that ethical? I don't know. That's things happen. And if they're in the contract, you're not obligated to purchase every single property that you contract. Especially if you have those out clauses. And same thing in the real world, when someone's selling a property, they have the right within the contracts to be able to back out through the inspection period, or they have a financing contingency. Most contracts through the United States have a financing contingency that they can get out for any reason. All the lender has to say is sorry, he didn't qualify. Or his credit dropped, or whatever happened, and they can get out of that contract on that financing contingency. Now, what I do is I try to negotiate the best price that I know that I can sell the property. Okay? And if I am not confident that I can sell the property, then I will tell the seller. I'll say, listen, you know what? I can't do, I need to be at 15 to make my numbers work, but if you are dead set on 20, what we can do is we can sign the contract for $20,000, but it's going to be subject to me finding another buyer for the property. And guess what? If I find a buyer, great. Then you can get your full $20,000. If I can't, then obviously I have to back out of the contract. And that's what I tell the seller. Now let's talk about. He said something in there about renegotiating price. Okay, when it comes to renegotiating price, I don't do that on every single deal. Okay, and I want to make that clear. Every single property, I don't go back and renegotiate the price with the seller. But what I do is sometimes if I get beat up by the buyer, where the buyer comes in and says, oh my gosh, I need a new roof, I need a new AC, I need to put plumbing in there, I need to do this, and I get reduced on price, then I would go back and use those same objections or those same objections and go back and talk to the seller and say, listen, the roof is in bad condition, the AC is in bad condition, all these these are in bad condition, and either we need to lower the price or we need to back out the contract. And that could be that's the truth based upon what the buyer, or even if I'm the buyer on the property, if I send my contractor in there during a certain time and the numbers of what has what it needs to get the property fixed up is way higher than I'm expecting, then guess what? I can go back and negotiate with the seller to try to reduce the price. In a normal real estate transaction, that happens. What happens is there's usually a 7 to 10 day inspection period. Someone goes in, they have an inspector go in, they inspect the property inside and out, and they come back with a whole list of things. Well, guess what? If the AC doesn't work, well, they're going to renegotiate the price, or they're going to say, hey, listen, seller, you got to fix it. If the roof's in bad condition, guess what? They're going to say, hey, listen, reduce the price or fix it. And that's what happens in a normal, regular real estate transaction. Now, is that ethical? You're the buyer. It's a very, very fine line. This is what I believe. I believe if you're talking to a seller and you're basically telling them, say, listen, you have a contract clause in here. He says, listen, I'm agreeing to purchase this property to either rent it, lease it, assign it, and I'm selling it for profit. That's why I'm here. I'm in the business of making a profit, and I'm here to help you move this unmovable property. And negotiate with them on the best price that works for them, but also works for me. Now, sometimes there's not a meeting of the minds when it comes to the seller and the buyer, and they want, I was talking to a lady last night, I needed to be in the 80, she wanted to be at 125. The gap is too big. I'm not going to say, okay, let's do 125, and then, put all these out clauses in there and not tell her that I might not sell the property. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, listen, our numbers are too far off. Now, if she said she wanted 90 or she wanted 85, then I'd say, hey, listen, I really need to be at 80 to make my numbers work. But if you want to do, say, her 90, then guess what? I can't commit to it, but I have other buyers that potentially might be looking for properties, and they might spend $90,000. Now, what I don't want is you to use that as your scapegoat, as to where now you have to sign a contract, and I don't want you contracting properties all over the place for the numbers that don't work. I rarely do that, okay, because it takes time and energy to get the contract, to open up the escrow, to market the property, to put signs out, to put it on Craigslist, to put it on my website, to email it out. So I don't waste a lot of time on that. But what I do is I try to negotiate the absolute best price possible, or a seller finance option. And I negotiate a seller finance option for the best price possible, knowing that I could sell it. Now, if I am not confident that I can sell the property, then I will tell them. And they're obviously going to sign off and initial off the fact that I'm not representing them, number one. And number two, I'm an investor and I'm here for a profit. Okay? So when it comes to you, and what if you're brand new and you don't know if you can sell the property yet? What do? Then you use the formula. You go, okay, listen, at 70% less repairs, less profit. Well, the house is worth $100,000. At 70% is $70,000. Less repairs, let's call it $10,000. Less profit, $10,000. Now you're down to $50,000 for a purchase price. Well, that's a pretty good rule of thumb, that if you're at a buy price at $50,000, then you can sell it for $60,000 and easily justify to a wholesale buyer that will come in and buy that. Okay, use the formula in that particular case, and then try to get at or lower than the $50,000 purchase price, on there. Now, if the property is more distressed, then obviously you have to account that in your repairs quote. Now, then people are going, well, how do I figure out repairs? Well, you figure out repairs by taking the square footage of the property and multiplying it by $8 to $10 a foot, depending on how bad it is. If it's really bad, you're going to have to get up to $12, $13, $14, maybe even $15 a foot. If it's not as bad, maybe $7 or $8 a foot. You got 2,000 square foot property, then you have $10 a foot, it's $20,000 in repairs. That's a good rule of thumb to get a ballpark on repairs. Now you just have to kind of eyeball it to see, does it need updating or is it trashed? If it's trashed, well, guess what? Then you're going to have to be at the upper $10, $12, $13 a foot range to get the property all fixed up and renovated. So that is my my take on that, and I want to thank Gilbert for posting that and bringing that to my attention, because I want you to know that with this podcast and with when I'm talking to sellers, that my sincere interest is to not only help them out the best I possibly can, but not take advantage, of them, but to make it a win-win scenario, a winning scenario for the seller. And that's why I got videos of people giving me hugs, and go to Sell House Fast Arizona, sellhousefastArizona.com. That's my seller website. And I get videos on there of people giving me hugs saying, thank you so much for helping me out, because that. Now, I'll give you an example. Came across a property where the house was trashed, and the couple wanted to sell it. Houses in the area were on the market for 6 months to a year, and they needed to sell it because they didn't have any money, literally no money, and they wanted to sell it and sell it quick. House was worth about $400 or so, all fixed up. Like I said, the house was trashed and needed a bunch of work. They only owed $38,000 on the property. Okay, and with what I know and the negotiation skills I know, I could have easily negotiated that down to next to nothing on the property and made a killing on the property. But see, I didn't do that. What I did was I thought, with the work that needed to be done, that I could sell it for roughly about $240. Okay, and I negotiated with her, right? And like I said, I could have got a lot lower, but gave her $220,000. So $220 minus the $38, she's getting well over, a couple $100,000 cash, or actually a little $180,000 cash, that she's going to get out of the property. That was there for the taking. Now, if I was, like the person that was said in the review there, of just complete, I could have gone for the juggler easily and turn around and got that property. I know I could have gotten a contract for less than $100,000, $100,000 or less. And I could have made well over, 6 figures on the property. Now, I didn't do that. Not only did I sit there and listen to her stories for 2 or 3 hours, she had no money. I gave her $1,000 cash before we signed docs, before we said anything, because she couldn't eat. I gave her $1,000 out of my pocket. I gave her $1,000 cash because she couldn't eat. I said, well, listen, here, just advance off it, Now, she could have screwed me and said, I'm not going to sign and take my $1,000. Yeah, she could have done that. But I trusted that she wouldn't. And so I gave her $1,000 cash. And then, right, I started doing comps and research and stuff, and I found out that, I could probably sell it for $285, but I thought that there was other properties on there, so I put it out at $265, and I marketed the property for $265. It's actually higher than I expected after I, got all my final numbers and comps on it and stuff like that, and kind of did my repair estimate on it, and also I was giving my room for negotiation, but I had several buyers come out of the woodwork that and one guy paid me $265,000. I made $43,000 after closing costs on the property. So now that turned out a win-win. It was win for her, right? Because she got well over, close to $200,000 on the property. It was a win for me, right? Negotiated. And it was a win for the buyer. He got the property at a great deal. He's going in and fixed it up, and he can put it on the market, turn around and sell it and make a profit. So it's a win-win all the way around. Now, there's lots of opportunities, and you have to use your best judgment to be able to discern how far you want to take it. Now, the higher the property values, obviously the more profit margins you're going to have, 10 to 20% or more. If you're dealing with $1 million house, it wouldn't even think twice of making $50,000 or $100,000 on $1 million house. Wouldn't even think twice about it. So when it comes to that, you have to kind of use your own good judgment to make the decision on exactly how you want to negotiate. So That is my long-winded version of answering that. And this is the other thing, is I put this podcast together. Obviously it takes time to do and to build a website and to record a podcast and write a book and give away a lot of good free information. But I can tell you this, my sincere thing for this podcast, motive for this podcast, is to help people, is to help you in your learning curve to go from where you are to where you want to be. Because I can tell you this, the lifestyle you can have by flipping properties is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. To be able to make more money than you've ever dreamt possible, but also to be able to do the things that you want to do when you want to do it. I mean, it's August 4th right now. I'm headed back out to California later today, and I'm going to go out there for the weekend. But I came back for just a couple days because my daughter had a couple school things to do, and but I've been out the beach the entire month. I'm like chocolate brown, tan, but for the whole month, it's been absolutely unbelievable. But imagine taking off an entire month, and going out and just spending the time with your family and going to the beach and going to the pool and going to Disneyland a bunch of times and having fun and to do what you want to do and not have to worry about a thing financially or time-wise. And that's what I want for you. Okay, and my sincere interest is to help people out. So I do, though, want to apologize for if I represented myself in a bad way or a unethical way, and I hope this episode changes that, because that's not who I am. If you know me personally, that's not who I want to portray. And again, I want to thank you for bringing that to my attention so I can address it in this episode, because I think it is very important. Because a lot of the negotiating tactics that I teach you inside the Flip to Freedom Academy and also in this podcast are they're advanced negotiating techniques that you could use to really take advantage of someone. And obviously, that's not the goal. That's not what I want to portray. And I want you to be able to use this information and make it a win-win for all parties. For the person who has an unsellable house and they're in a situation of dire straits, that you can come in and you can be the guy that saves the day and turn around and have an unsellable house and turn around and sell it. And you're doing good for the neighborhood. You're doing good for the buyer, because now the buyer can make a profit on it, fix it up and turn around and sell it, and maybe put a renter in it or put a brand new family in it in a brand new house. So it's doing good for the neighborhood, it's doing good for the seller, it's doing good for the buyer, it's doing good for the new buyer coming in that's going to be living there. And that's the goal, to have a win-win situation all the way around. It's even the same thing if you have seller financing. If you have someone who bought a house, another house, and couldn't afford 2 house payments, and we're working away, we could negotiate to be able to help them in their situation by leaving their existing financing in place and doing an agreement for sale. Same thing. It's a win-win all the way around. So I believe that your intention is the most important thing on what your intent. If your intent is to just screw someone over and just drill them down and make as much money as you can, then you're going to have issues, because then there's spiritual issues you have to deal with. But if your intent is really sincerely to help people out, but also to make a profit, then you'll become very successful in this business. Okay? So for this week, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your great reviews, and I greatly appreciate it. And until next week, I wish you the ultimate success in your real estate investing career. Take care, and God bless.